Hey guys, it's your best fight friends. I'm Kelsey. That's not Rachel. That's Ben Duffy. Ben is editor over at Sherdog. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It is a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited.
I'm sorry, I'm not Rachel.
That's okay. Many people fill this slot as well that aren't Rachel. UFC 263, big card on June 12th. It seems like every UFC card is big. But anyway, big card on June 12th. Headlined by Israel Adesanya's title defense against Marvin Vettori. I wanted to have you on the show, Ben, to talk about this card. It's also got two other pretty big fights on it that people are excited about. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno 2, of course. And then the return of Nate Diaz, right? Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. That's a firecracker. I'm excited about the card. How do you feel about this card, Ben?
I'm really excited about the card. And you said something really interesting right off the top there, that all the UFC cards seem big. And when you're talking about pay-per-views, that's absolutely the case. The difference between one and the next is kind of what you get down card, like the rest of the main card, the prelims. This one is full of interesting matchups and interesting fighters, pretty much top to bottom. Like, I'm really excited for this card to approach so I can really start digging into some of the less heralded fights on here. But we're here to talk about the big ones, I know.
Let's talk about the big one first, at least. I tell you, coming over, like, as you know, Ben, I was a long time a boxing writer, and coming over to the UFC world and all these UFC pay-per-views, it's not just the one fight. In boxing, it's the main event. And then, I mean, you probably remember Mayweather versus Pacquiao and the trash undercard that had. UFC, man, these things just seem jam-packed, full of action. And it's almost like you can't even catch your breath. It's quite the difference.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because Mayweather-Pacquiao was literally the last boxing pay-per-view card that I paid for.
I knew that it would be one.
And by boxing standards, it wasn't that bad. The undercard had like Leo Santa Cruz. It had what's his name? The little Ukrainian guy.
They were all minus 10,000.
Yes. Well, it was like a Bellator undercard that way.
Okay. Yeah. I was a proponent. Let's talk about the minute first. I was a proponent of Marvin Vettori getting the rematch against Israel Adesanya because I like the stylistic matchup that he presents. I don't want to see necessarily Adesanya getting a kickboxing fight with people because he's great at that. But Marvin Vettori, he's been on a tear. He likes to take people down the ground. What do you like about this main event, or what do you dislike?
All right, I like it better than I thought I would from an actual stylistic and competitive standpoint. I think both guys have improved since their first fight, and Vettori in particular, his striking it's turned a corner in the last couple of years. I think the narrative that Vettori likes to put forward and that the UFC will certainly put forward, that, you know, Vettori took him to the limit and gave him the fight of his life and it was so close. It wasn't that close. I mean, if you go back and watch,
he believes it. Marvin Vettori believes it was.
If you ask Marvin Vettori, he won it. But
yeah,
that's why we don't ask Marvin Vettori. But if you go back and watch that fight, first round, it's a bit of a feeling out process on the feet. Adesanya gets the better of it. Second round, Adesanya really starts styling on him. He's feeling it. He's got the rhythm. He's got the range. He's starting to throw the spinning stuff. Third round, Vettori takes him down immediately, racks up about 3.5 minutes of top control, and there's no question it's a Vettori round. Yeah. So going back and looking at that fight, my only question is, what would have happened if Vettori tried to take him down in the first round?
Right.
And we might get a chance to find that out now. Right. That's my only thought. You know, what if Vettori approached the fight differently this time?
I know what I also like about Marvin Vettori. He's so angry all the time. I mean, like, he's a guy who says he's not angry. I don't feel angry is what he says. But he just lashes out at everybody and everything to the point where I think it actually helped him get this fight.
I completely agree. The UFC, I think they see promotional gold there for the mining. They know that they're going to be able to film the embedded. Vettori's going to give him a bunch of sound bites. Anytime they get these guys in front of mics on the opposite side of a podium from Dana White, there's going to be fire because Adesanya is certainly not a guy who's just going to let Vettori talk at him. Yeah, that's certainly part of it. That's part of the industry we report on. It's an entertainment industry.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see Adesanya back in his natural weight class. Do you think that he has something to prove after trying to become the 5th ever champ?
He'll claim he doesn't. But he absolutely needs to come out and make a statement that he still owns this house.
Was that the blueprint? Did Jan lay the blueprint? He got worked in that fight, I thought.
He did get worked in that fight. I don't know if that is a repeatable path to victory for Vettori, but if there is any middleweight who could do it, you look at Vettori, a guy who can take care of himself on the feet well enough maybe to get inside Adesanya's range, because Adesanya typically wants to fight all the way out. He wants range. He wants to use his 6'4", 78-inch reach, whatever he's got, and nail you from range. Vettori could get inside that range, could take him down, and he is one of the physically just. You look at the guy; he is a specimen at 185. He's not as big as Jan, but if there's anyone in that kind of top 10 of the middleweight division that could replicate that, it might be Vettori.
Another fun fight on the card, of course, is the return of the flyweight champ Deiveson Figueiredo against Brandon Moreno in a rematch. Headed into the last fight, I thought Figueiredo was just going to just roll right over Brandon Moreno, and I was sorely mistaken. Now, since then, I've wondered this, man. You'll probably be better. You'll be able to tell me. Was it because Figueiredo was reportedly sick before the fight, or is Brandon Moreno just that good?
Oh, this is going to be a cowardly answer, but I believe it is a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. There's no question in my mind that Figueiredo was somewhat compromised before that fight, but
he looked different, though, right? He didn't look the same. He didn't seem to have the same energy about him.
He didn't, which is surprising because he always looks like death warmed over on the scale. He has an obviously horrible cut to get to 125, but it's not really compromised him in the cage. He didn't quite look the same this time, but at the same time, Moreno just looked really good.
Yeah.
Even though I scored this fight for Figueiredo at the time, like I didn't see it as a draw. I thought it was 49-46 Figueiredo.
Yeah.
I don't hate the rematch, and I usually hate immediate title rematches.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least it gives Figueiredo, because he did seem like he had. I was kind of amazed after what came out afterward about how sick he supposedly was the night before that they allowed him to fight.
I don't believe they probably knew the full extent of it.
Well,
and that leads to a whole other question. Like, so he left the quarantine bubble and went to a regular old hospital. Like, let's not even go down that unless you want to have a 45-minute show.
Okay, today, well, here's the other thing about Figueiredo I'm interested in as a person who is learning more and more about MMA every day. What do you think about Figueiredo channeling the animals out there with his like animal style? Have you seen that, the UFC promotional material where he's learning how to fight from animals? Because he does look different than other people, and it is effective.
It looks weird as hell to me.
I love it.
But at the same time, I mean, it harks back to just like classic wushu, you know, where you get your tiger style and your crane style. I don't hate it. It adds flavor. It adds interest, you know, to what we get to watch. Do I think we're going to see anything from him that actually resembles Five Animals style kung fu? Probably not, but
I love it. I even love even if people just talk about it. I think it's part of martial arts history. And then, man, if I could ever see him pull out a crane kick like Karate Kid or Lyoto Machida did once, I would love that.
It sure beats the hell out of just another hype reel of somebody flipping over tires in a gym, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, this is a big card, and it's precisely a big card because I think a lot of people that are buying the pay-per-view are going to buy it for Nate Diaz fighting Leon Edwards. I think that because as a writer, I know that every time I write about Nate Diaz, a lot of people want to click on that article. What do you think about him fighting Leon Edwards? I didn't see this fight coming from a million miles away. I never thought it would happen.
If people are going to be tuning into this pay-per-view to see Nate Diaz, they're going to leave very disappointed.
That's the thing, right? Like, is this...
Because not only is Leon Edwards a top 3 welterweight and a sadly forgotten man, and a sadly kind of excluded man by UFC matchmakers over the last couple of years, but he is specifically a terrible guy to look good against. Not only is Nate Diaz going to lose this fight, he's going to look terrible at it. Nothing he tries is going to work. He's going to end up losing a lopsided decision, like while making faces and flipping the bird. This is not going to be a delight for Nate Diaz.
Why would he? I don't understand why he was talking about potentially fighting other lightweights at welterweight. And first he was talking about moving down to lightweight. Why? Then all of a sudden you've decided to take on Leon Edwards, who maybe isn't even. I don't know. I feel like if you're Nate Diaz, you can get fights that are maybe a little easier and maybe even against bigger name opponents.
I agree. This fight does not make sense for anybody involved. It is a huge competitive step back for Edwards. It's a miserable matchup for Diaz. I don't get it at all. They must be paying the hell out of Diaz, and maybe they've made some like backroom promises to Edwards that, okay, yes, you will be next in line for a title shot if you win your 9th straight fight.
Yeah. Well, I guess like if you're a Leon Edwards fan or Leon Edwards, you know, even Leon Edwards, you're sort of grateful for this because you do get to fight a big name, and you've had a lot of fights that have seemed like they were on their way and then they would have fallen apart on you.
Sometimes, you know, through things that have happened to him, sometimes, you know, his opponents, he's certainly had some bad luck along the way.
Yeah. I'm excited about the card. Did you have any particular like love of anybody else in the undercard that people maybe should pay attention to?
I've got a quick love and a quick hate for you. Hakeem Dawodu versus Movsar Evloev is an unbelievably amazing matchup. Movsar Evloev, if you've been watching the UFC over the last year and a half, is an electrifying grappler from Russia. His fight with, I'm not going to stop and try to remember his name, the British wrestler guy. It was a decorated member of the UK Games wrestling team, and him trying to take down Evloev looked like somebody in a Looney Tunes cartoon trying to stick a cat into a bathtub. It was just this incredible 15 minutes of scrambles, and then he's taking on Dawodu, who is equally electrifying as a striker. And not only is it a great matchup, should be a great fight, but it has serious implications in the featherweight division, where it's really, really hard to get onto the rankings radar. Whoever wins this fight is right on the cusp of the top 10.
And which one do you hate?
I hate Lauren Murphy versus Joanne Calderwood. Not because I hate either of those fighters. They're both fantastic. But these are two people that you could argue should get a title shot now.
Shoot, Lauren.
Why are you going to send one of them to the back of the line when you're already having trouble finding things to put into the grinder that is Valentina Shevchenko?
Yeah, it's weird to me that I was kind of hoping, and of course you were here at UFC 262 in Houston. Is that the one? Yeah, UFC 262 in Houston. And they had Valentina Shevchenko was at all these fan events. I have expected Lauren Murphy to show up in Clubber Langer, right, from the press conference, but she never did that. I don't understand.
Hey, fool.
Yeah, but I guess because she already had a fight lined up. Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming on to our show, Ben. Of course, Ben is the editor over at Sherdog. He also writes for Sherdog. What else do you do, Ben? You do all sorts of stuff. You have a YouTube show, a podcast called Unleashed with...
Yep, I have an independent show called Unleashed that's through the Walkout Network with my friends Amp Walker and Jay Petrie. I do the official Sherdog radio previews and recaps with Keith Schillen, which you can find on the Sherdog YouTube page.
Man.
Or you could just find me on Sherdog writing stuff. I do a lot.
You're living that full-time MMA life.
I am, sir.
Well, we'll definitely leave a link to all your stuff in the show notes. We're grateful to have you on. He's Ben, I'm Kelsey, and this is Real Talk.